So, welcome to Goals Question Time. And today I've got the pleasure of being with Russell Sheffield. Hi, Russell.
Hello.
So, Russell, you and I go back quite a number of years
Yep.
as a friend and as a business that I invested in going back a while now. And it's great to have you on because we'd like to share your story of being an entrepreneur and your business startup. So great to have you on.
It's my pleasure to be here, Andrew. Thank you. And yeah, I'm very proud that we've been working together for so many years now, as well as obviously kindly investing into what we're doing in Tract. So, and you were our first investor in Tract. So
yeah, that's right. That's right. So there's been a few others since. But
yeah,
so let's kick off. Give us an introduction to yourself and your backstory, because I think that's a great part of about you and about what you're doing now.
Okay. Confession. I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd and loved technology since I was a kid, but not just technology for technology's sake, but technology and how it impacts business and the opportunity that technology can bring to business to disrupt it for the better, in my opinion. And I guess I was lucky enough to really be around how this happened with my father, who started this recording studio, Trident Studios. And that was back in 1968. And it was the world's first 8-track recording studio. And it was built by him as a studio for musicians, built by musicians, with a very much a different mentality to Abbey Road, where he worked as a professional drummer for many years. And difference being, he wanted to build a studio that artists come and have fun and collaborate and build and create incredible work. So within a month of opening in 1968, the first #1 hit out there was Manfred Mann, My Name is Jack. And a few people may know that, some of the younger viewers may not. And then very shortly after, a band called the Beatles moved in, and they left Abbey Road because they saw the fun that was going on at Trident and how they could actually be the creators behind the desk and come up with incredible work. The work that came out of there started with Hey Jude, and that was their single they did at Trident. And that obviously propelled Trident to a stratosphere. The Beatles stayed at Trident and did a whole chunk of the White Album, as it's known, the Beatles album. And to a certain extent, the rest then became history, because as Trident became known for the studio for musicians to enjoy and have the most cutting edge technology at the time, but also a place to really be creative. People like David Bowie moved in and started his career. The first 5 albums, Elton John did his first 4 albums there. And then Dad signed Queen in 1972. Mm-hmm. And so that was like a strat, and that was really probably the first I really remember about it in 1972 was going to like Queen gigs, as they were friends of Dad's before they were famous. So I grew up in this incredible environment where, you know, I was being introduced to the best recording technology, the best people, and the building teams around projects and solving it back then in the 60s, changing face of music industry.
Yeah, and you know, the pitch deck you've got now for Tract, there's a fantastic photograph in that of you with Freddie Mercury and sort of stuff like that. When was that? That
was actually supporting. That was when 1973. That was December. I think I was 8, and it was Queen was supporting Mott the Hoople. So that was before they were famous. And Mott the Hoople, the big hit was All the Young Dudes, which David Bowie wrote at Trident. Actually, interesting enough. With Mott the Hoople also recorded there. And Queen, Dad had to back Queen for 3 years. No record label wanted to sign them. They were so out there in the pressure, they couldn't get any backers. And the first 3 albums were entirely funded by Trident Studios. So all the stuff, 7 Seas of Rye, Killer Queen, even on to Bohemian Rhapsody, was all funded by my dad and his team at Trident to back that band. That's the belief in the talent they had. And one of the first major tours they did as a support act was supporting Mott the Hoople, who had just had the major hit with All the Young Dudes. And so that gig that there's a picture of me at is me standing by the side of the table, where there's actually a cake being given to Mott the Hoople by Queen saying, "Thank you for letting us be your support band." And there's a great picture on the cake where they're sort of larking about with it, and there's Freddie and Roger, and Freddie and Roger Bronze on the picture, and there's John, and then Rick Parfitt from Status Quo, and a few other people in the shot, and there's me in the corner. And it was actually only a few years ago that my dad, actually before he passed away, sent this to me and said, "I just found this picture, and it's you." So that was quite nice to show that it puts a stamp on the hanging out back then, you know.
Yeah.
What I
So
really,
wind us forward a bit then. So when
yeah,
you've grown up and you get into the tech, what was your
yeah,
sort of tech story and being involved in the
yeah.
early
So
.com era, which is
absolutely. So I carried on playing in bands and doing things. That was my side interest and you know, passionate. But I love technology and computers. And I was programming my dad's Apple II and learning that really. I was 11 or 12 when I was doing that, really getting into that. And then I suddenly started realizing with my younger brother who had just graduated as a graphic designer that actually there was an opportunity to start dabbling with the web. This is 95. So when it first was around and I was coding HTML by hand. So we had this idea as a agency, a digital marketing agency my brother and I created. Again, cutting edge technology. We had an image setter which produced the photographic films, and we always were pushing the boundaries of technology. And we came up with this idea with our travel companies, we would start producing websites, because at the time they were producing massive, great big travel brochures that had pages and pages and pages of timetables and pricing. So I said, well, if we can move some of that business online, then we'll save a load of money for our clients, and it's going to be the future. And the little company called EasyJet, startup company, Orange Porter Cabins at Luton. I walked out of one of our clients at Broxbourne, and there was a billboard poster that said "Fly to Edinburgh for £29." I was like, "Whoa! How can they do that?" Because the BA are charging £400. That doesn't make any sense. So I rang them up, and being an aviation fan, and I said, "This doesn't make sense." I was invited to go to their office and talk to Tony Anton, the marketing director. And I went up and I presented my ideas, and he walked me into this little orange porter cabin, was hand painted a Luton, and he walked me into this room, no cup of tea, didn't offer me to sit down or any of that stuff, and then said, "Okay, tell me what you know." So I gave him this whole thing about, it didn't make sense, the branding and so on, and the way it doesn't explain the proposition, and I can't understand how they can do it that much cheaper. So he made loads of notes and then said, "All right," but it didn't give me any indication of whether it was going to work or not.
yeah.
So as I left the meeting, I was like, I don't know whether we got that business or not. The phone rang the following day and said, "Can you make a meeting this afternoon?" I was like, "Oh, that's good." So this time I rocked up wearing my jeans and t-shirt because that was the garb, and I was incredibly out of state in my suit the previous day. So I rocked up and go into this side room, which is the boardroom, nerve center, and it's full of people in jeans and t-shirts and suits. It's like, oh my God, I feel and they're all looking really smart, and I'm like dressed down. Anyway, my notes were still up on the board, and Tony sort of said, "Okay, walk us through your thinking again." So I went through and said, "Look, this doesn't make any sense." And about 5 minutes in, this guy, Stelios, I now know, stood up and bellowed at me across. "You got an effing cheat coming in here, tell me how to run my company." Like, I went, "No, I'm sorry. You invited me back. I'm telling you the truth, how I think it is."
Yeah.
And he grinned and came around the corner and came around the table and shook my hand and said, "You got the job. You're in."
Yeah.
So
Do you know what? I suppose at the parallel time, late 90s, I did my MBA at Henley Business School, Management College it was called then. And you know what? I got the worst mark in my MBA papers when I wrote about how I was going to take my division of a large corporate online. So online product information, online health and safety information, online order taking, and automatic tank replenishment. And it was like the worst mark, and I failed to get the corporate to look at Netscape, look at Mosaic, and sort of stuff like that. And it was like, oh well, you couldn't do the business case, and you couldn't sort of. I said, but no, that's what the future is, and that's what inspired me back in 99, 2000 to create what I'm now doing. In helping corporates with their innovation and venturing. So you from the startup side, it's that bit that I think is that external innovation brings that change and that to a corporate or to an industry.
Well, it's an interesting sort of postscript to that whole story because we were their digital agency doing all their ads, and we came up with the strapline, the web's favorite airline that came later actually, but No Frills Airline was our first strapline for them, that big resin. I wish I'd have trademarked that. So that was out, but we're doing all this creative work for them and advertising in all the papers. And I kept saying to Stelios and Tony, our monthly marketing, look, you've got to consider the web, because at the time they had a call center. And their call center, they paid every one of their call center agents £5 for every booking they made, and completely not paid a salary, but £5 a call. And I said, if we can move some of those calls, because people were ringing up to find out what the weather was like in Edinburgh, so they're still paying them a fiver to that. I said, if we can move that traffic online, that's going to make a dent to your business. That'll help you. And Stelios said to me, "The internet's for nerds. It will never make money for my business." I went, "No, this is your business. This is going to be your business." He wouldn't have it. And we walked out of that particular meeting when I presented my ideas around the web. And Tony Collerby said, "Do you know that direct marketing project we just talked about?" I went, "No." "Yeah, that one, that direct marketing." I said, "No." He goes, "Well, whatever it is, do not refer to it as the web. It's now Project Alpha."
Right.
and whenever you write to me, because Stelios reads our email, just always refer to it as that. And you come back to me, let me know how much it's going to cost, and let's build something as a bit of a pilot. So, excuse the pun. So I went off and said to my brother, "How do we do this? What do we charge? Like, because how many pages it could be, it could go mad." By then it was all based on pages, So I actually took a brave decision and said, "I'm going to base this on per transaction. And I'm going to charge the $5 that the call center make."
Right.
Dave, and the rest is history. So we did exactly that deal. I went back, we built a little program, and we started running a website for him. And about a month and a half later, Stelios comes around and goes, "Tell me about this Project Alpha then." And he, I was like, "Okay, guys, right, how much do you need?"
Yeah.
"All right, let's get on with it." So the rest literally is history. 4 years, we took it from a basic holding landing pages right the way through to the e-commerce. I integrated in with their mainframe, and I got some specials in for that. So we built everything, and we ran that whole company for that. I was running it from my shed in Broxbourne, not dissimilar to here, with servers and everything. We were running the whole company for them. We were up to 85% of their bookings by the time we gave the business back to them and said, "You need to get your internal team to do this."
Yeah. Let's press the fast forward on the on the cassette deck, and so you've done that with EasyJet. You've done it. So you did a couple of exits. You exited that business. You did another one on payment sort of thing. Just quickly on those exits of experience.
So back then, when I was selling that company, I decided that actually one of the next thing that's coming was WAP phones. I look at they used to be the first one, and I thought, hang on a minute, how about if we can do some really clever stuff on phones for payments, because it never been thought about. We all had credit cards, but what about if I can enable secure payments through the mobile phone? And we looked at WAP, and then we went to the web versions. So we built the world's first PCI Level 1 banking accredited platform for mobile payments back in 2012. 2012. So I launched that, and that was signed off by all the banks and was used by lots of companies like the NSP or charities, NSPCC, Virgin Media, and so on. So be able to make secure payments, and we built a whole API platform. And I sold that company in 2012. Beg your pardon, I got the dates wrong. So I started pay through in 2007. So 2012 I exited that business, and then I decided to focus on what we're doing now. It's Tracked, and looking at the music industry and trying to see how we can put better tools, enable artists around the world to work together. The biggest problem that kept coming up in my friendships with all my artists that I was managing as well as playing with was they had phones full of ideas, but no way of sharing them privately amongst themselves. So I had this idea about, why don't we produce an 8-track studio in your phone to enable them to 8-track homage to Trident, obviously, because if you can produce Hey Jude in 8 tracks, you don't need anything more than that. So it's just about enable people to get quick decision making down, quick songs, sound bites, and spark the creativity and take it from there, and then collaborate with people around the world and build songs that way. So building a band in your hand.
So just the perspective that I've had on this, Russell, as I said, I'm really interested in how technology enables or disrupts a particular sector, and my take on it coming from the outside, how bad I am at music, because I've tried to put some stuff onto your platform. I love going out and watching and playing, but what I've seen looking at from an industry point of view, we've had artists who have been tied to record labels and tied to the physical production of vinyls and CDs. And then we saw the industry shift where iTunes and Apple were controlling. Now Spotify sort of could control it. But the next level really is, what's the next level of collaboration? What's the next level of content? And really what I've always been passionate about is, how do we get money back to the creatives? A business that I've founded and invested in, Lone Design Club, which is about, typically female creators who are doing sustainable fashion. How do we get money back to them when that industry is disrupted? And music, we're seeing a similar sort of thing in that now. So give us a little bit of that background again on the demo of what Tracked sort of does.
So Tracked is an 8-track studio in your pocket. enables people around the world to collaborate. So you don't have to be in the same building, don't have to be in the same world or in the same studio. You can put your ideas together and work and share those ideas. Then when you're ready, you can share those ideas with the world. And now the new evolution of Tract enables those artists to monetize that work directly from their fans. So as opposed to just posting the work out on a streaming platform and getting paid a pittance for your work, with Tract, once you've finished a project, all the agreements are done automatically within the app. So there's no discussions about who owns what part of the song. That's all handled by us for them. And then when they push the work out, they actually get direct payments directly from the fans that are paying that artist. So we're cutting out the whole of the middleman. Means any artist in the world can now earn a revenue directly from the people that matter, which is their fans. And the way we do that is that we take a very small percentage for running the platform for them.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, they can choose their own pricing, how much they want to charge their fans for this content, etc., etc., etc. So they're completely in control of their livelihood as well as their creativity.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing.
Yeah.
So we strip out the need for a record label. You don't need that anymore. It's all here in your hand. So the label's gone. And now the monetization's in your hands. So instead of being paid a pittance by the streaming labels and the streaming services, they're just telling you how many streams you've had. I mean, you need like 1 million streams a month to make a minimum wage. It's ridiculous. It's just not feasible. Whereas if you use our platform and Tract, because you earn 85% of the payment. So for 10 quid, you get £8.50. So it's instead of being 0.0004 pennies. Per stream, you're actually getting £8.50. So it's a game changer. People can actually earn a proper living with us now.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing here is we can see that the industry is going to be disrupted again, because we know industries are being disrupted. Yep. But when you go back and look at it and sort of say back in the day, like you said, with the Beatles and Queen and sort of stuff like that, we would go out and we would buy the vinyl records for £pounds. Thinking that those artists were the ones getting the money, and probably they got a bigger proportion, but a large bit of it went into the whole infrastructure and system. And now what we can do, we in the general sense, because of technology and business models changing, we can change that sort of dynamic. And that's what I think is really interesting, that maybe we're seeing the future now in what you're doing.
I hope so. I mean, if you go back to that example, I mean, the other thing that's missing, has been missing for many years, is the engagement from a fact when you go and buy a CD or even an album, a piece of vinyl, there's a whole story around that. It's about who played on it and who did what and who's worked. So we're bringing that back in. But back in the day with Queen, right, for example, they would get, say, 20% typically of that 10 quid. That's their margin they would typically get out of an album, because there would be distribution costs, there'd be production costs. So there was, in all fairness to the labels, there is a physical cost involved in promoting the band and putting them on stage for touring and so on. So that moved to streaming, jumping even to CDs and MP3s, iTunes, and that was at least they got a third, they got at least 30% back then. The problem is, as it went to streaming, it's now ripped all the costs out, and the labels effectively control the streaming. So the artist is lucky and to see a fraction of a penny. But worse than that, because it's owned, the streaming labels because the streaming services are owned majority by the labels, the 5% of people they have in the industry are the ones that get promoted. So you don't get a look in if you're in the 95%. So it's even worse now. And what we've done is actually turn the whole thing on its head and say, it's your work, it's your content, you need to get paid for it. So we've flipped it on its head to be 85% in favor of the artist. Okay, great. So let's just move on a little bit now. We got you as the passionate entrepreneur. You've brought on some investors. Tell us a little bit about sort of the investors you've got and sort of the journey of that you're on from that investor side. It's been amazing. I'm very lucky that I've got passionate investors like yourself involved. And I'm quite cautious with the people I want to have investing in the business, because this is a game-changing business, but it's also very important to me that it's done right and it's done with the right people for the right reasons. All that said and done, it's hard. It's very hard raising money in the UK. We've had interest in the United States, and if the pandemic hadn't been here, we were planning to be there in May and raise significant money in the States, because they back ideas. At the UK, the seed to Series A, you tend to work with entrepreneurs or investors that are behind ideas. But when you're trying to take a sort of investment, say 3 million plus, in the
Yeah.
UK. You move into the VC territory, and they're just looking at metrics and numbers, and then there's no passion play. So they don't go, well, actually, the fact you've got over 600,000 people around the world using your product, right, making music, and we're making money. They go, oh yeah, but you're not doing 20 grand a month. It's like, come on, like, this is going to change the world. And the Americans will go, yep, we love the idea, we're in. And it's a different dynamic. So we're still seeking and very proud to say that we're still signing individual private investors who I would rather work with, high net worth individuals, those guys that get the passion. And I would love to do it on this way rather than taking venture capital money if we can do it. That's the truth.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Russell, I think that's fantastic. Really great to have your story and to share it and that with the community that we've got of entrepreneurs and investors and corporates who are seeing that business models are going to be changing and how they engage with entrepreneurs as well. So thanks very much for sharing your story today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much.